Hello, everybody. I am Nayaswami Maria, and this is Nayaswami Ananta, if you're new here and don't know us. Thank you. We want to thank you for just holding this very sacred and blessed sanctuary, and as a physical reality, but most especially in your hearts. It feels wonderful to be here. And just see so many, to just look at everyone's face for a minute here. Those of you who I know, it's been a while. So our subject today is first things first. And you know this passage, this story in the autobiography of a yogi, if you're not familiar with it, and even if you are, I just really encourage you to read it. Swami Kriyananda, who was a direct disciple of Yogananda's and who founded Ananda, he would oftentimes address this chapter. He absolutely loved it. He felt it was one of the most thrilling, and that's the word he always used to describe it, chapters in the autobiography. And familiar with it, you will know why, because it's just such a powerful call to faith, to deepening our faith, and putting God first in everything. Just a miraculous account. Many times Swami Kriyananda would be interviewed, on radio or TV, something like that, and this subject would come up, putting God first in everything, and inevitably the announcer would sooner or later question it, just saying, but it just doesn't seem very practical. And Swami Kriyananda would always answer, this is the most practical way to live that anyone could live. But of course, if you're not thinking that way, being that way, then maybe it looks like a stretch, or at the least very crazy. I wanted to share another story of Yogananda's, which comes at this from a little different bit of an angle. It took place before this episode with his brother Ananta and this miraculous account of his trip to Vrindavan, when he didn't quite, he was playing the part of just not quite having his energy completely around faith and divine providence. And he was living at an ashram, and I think in Varanasi, and the guru of the ashram, he had been there for a while, and the guru of the ashram had been away, out visiting his disciples somewhere, in some order of spiritual business. And he was due back at 2 p.m, and a number of people a number of the members of the ashram were fasting that day, and Yogananda was fasting that day, and wasn't something at the time he was particularly used to. This was he was a young man, and still Makunda at this time. And so he was used to the 3 square meals a day. And already by 2, it was a really long day without food. It had been a long night previously without food. And he was hungry, and he let this be known. He was just pining for that meal and waiting for 2 o'clock to come. And wouldn't you know it, on this very day, the train is late. How about that, India? The train is late, So hours go by, and the train finally comes in, and he arrives at the ashram, and this huge feast is being prepared all day long. And just, for those of you who love Indian food, just the smells are, and he's just getting hungrier and hungrier and hungrier by the minute. And the train comes in late, and the guru arrives, and he's all about meditating. It's like, I'm going to go meditate. Dinner will happen when I'm done. And Yogananda is just beside himself. He's so hungry. He's so hungry. And he's just, kind of buckling down and waiting. And finally, the guru comes forth. The banquet is served. It's this sumptuous feast, and Yogananda is heartily eating this food. And he observes that the guru of the ashram, he's just kind of sort of playing with his food, not really, eating. And Yogananda's marveling at this, And afterwards he had a chance to speak with him, and he said, I noticed that you weren't really eating anything. Didn't you enjoy the food? Everyone had been preparing this all day. And he said, oh, well, I've been traveling for 3 days on the train to get here, and the vibrations were mixed. They just weren't good. I just didn't feel like eating. It was nothing to him. But this astounded, the young Yogananda. And he said, well, weren't you hungry, And the man said, don't worry about food. Don't ask for food, Let God, if he will, bring food or otherwise. And Yogananda said to him, but what if no one brings food? What if no one makes food? What if no one gives me any food? I could starve. And the Guru says to him, starve then, die, lest you think that you live by bread. Jesus' words, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth from the mouth of God. And Jesus was talking about that divine energy and consciousness that is our sustenance, not the things of this world, not the material things of this world. And so just a marvelous, humorous story. But, many years ago, a few years before Swami Kriyananda passed, he founded the Nayaswami order. Those of us in blue here were Nayaswamis. He founded this order as a new expression suited to this age, this climb, if you will, of consciousness to express renunciation and what our attitude and orientation should be in that as within the context of this age, not a suppression or leaving without, but an embracing. He called it samadhi embracing. But he offered this order. He felt it was timely at this moment in this age. But he offered it as an offering to those who he knew, had lived with, was serving with, not just within Ananda, but globally, but living and expressing a consciousness. It wasn't like we're starting this thing and this is what you need to do. It was, he was about living it and then expressing it, outwardly, formally, if it was the divine will. And I'm not going to go into this, but I wanted to make this point. At the time that he founded the order, he said, it's important that we now stand up and claim this, because it is a valid way of life. Renunciation is a valid way of life. Living the inner life, living for God, is a valid way of life. It's beautiful. It's worthwhile. It's fulfilling. It is blissful. Stand up and be counted. And this is what I really wanted to highlight here, is these words, stand up and be counted. Live for God first. Stand up and take charge of your life and put God first. That's really what this reading is about. And we think, oh, fine, I come on Sunday, or I do this, or I do that. But put God first in everything. Really claim that as your own and truly make a difference, in the life you are living and the life you still have to live. So many times, Ananta and I have talked with people, and meeting them for the first time, they might say something like, 20 years ago I read the autobiography of a yogi, and well, then I got married and I had kids and I did my job and this and that and the other. And would our life be different if we put God first? Would we not have a spouse? Would we not have a husband or a wife? Would we not have kids? Would we not have a career? What are we thinking? We're thinking backwards. We can go out there and seize life and claim it for ourselves, all that we want. But where are we coming from? Our egos? Our desires? And what are we going to get if we're coming from our ego and if we're coming from desires? We're going to get something that it may work, it may not work. We may be happy, we may not be happy. But what if we oriented our life around seeking God first and really trying to tune into what does God want to do, live, say, be through me? Then how would our life be different? Would it be different? Would it feel different? Would we like the way that feels? I just ask you to consider that, because no matter how many years we've been on the path, we can all orient our life more deeply in that. We could come into that with a greater faith, which is what the readings are talking about. Is our orientation towards God, well, I love you, God. I believe in you, God. I want you, God, in my life, but I have all these other things to do. Or maybe I really want to live the spiritual life, but I think I'll wait until I retire, because then I'm going to have time. Money is all going to be squared away. I'm going to have my savings. I'm going to have my investments. And I can really then take all my time and focus it on seeking God. You see that the world, material consciousness, gets us to think in these ways because it appears so predominant. It's such a mass consciousness. And to break out of that and say, I want to put God first in my life, that's huge. And that's what Swamiji was saying. Stand up and be counted. It is worthwhile. It is fulfilling. It does magnetize bliss in our lives. It's liberating to live that way. It's liberating to live in that consciousness. Yogananda says whatever desires we have, they set a course for our lives. They set a direction, and they're going to manifest in our life. They're going to direct our life. They're going to dictate our life. Our desires, our wants, whatever we want in this world to claim as our own, we put that thought out there. It's a powerful call. It's a very powerful call, and it brings results. What kind of results do we want? If we live for God first, the direct consequence of that is that we are going to feel freedom inside. And in that freedom, there is a great, great, great joy. Jesus said, if thine eye be single, thy whole body will be filled with light. It's the same thing. If thine eye be single, if we are focused on the divine, if we put God first, we see that truth manifesting in our lives, on the physical plane, in our environment, in the people who surround us. We are all living, breathing, walking magnets. And however we direct our consciousness, that's the world, that's the reality, that's the truth that we experience and know. And so Yogananda says, when you meditate and when you feel God's presence inside, when you feel God's presence here, when you hear the divine vibration, the Om, he says, offer your desires, spiritual and material, into that consciousness. And whatever you offer into that consciousness, into that reality, will manifest for you. But then he says, make sure first you offer that desire to know God, to have more of God in your life, to have God direct your life, because that will be answered. I wanted to just, Ananta will speak too, but I wanted to just close with one story. In the life of Saint Anthony, one of the great monastics, renunciates of the desert way back when, a beautiful, beautiful life, that he lived basically almost entirely in recluse, far off into the desert, and he kept going further and further in as people, came attracted by his spiritual depth and realization. And closer to the end of his life, he lived till well over 100, but he was in his 90s by now, and he felt inwardly called to visit St. Paul of Thebes, another one of the desert fathers who lived even further in recluse and had for the entirety of his life almost. Now he was well over 100, 110. But Anthony felt called to visit him, and he had no idea where he was. It was, they were all out on their own out there. But he journeyed for days, inwardly guided, and by miraculous circumstances found St. Paul. And they shared, just this one brother in God to another, just this divine satsang, and they talked a while, and it was also St. Paul's wish to see Anthony. And then after some time, a raven flew in, and the raven was carrying a whole loaf of bread in its mouth. But the interesting thing about it was that raven appeared every day. It appeared every day with a half a loaf of bread for Paul. But somehow today it appeared with this whole loaf of bread so that Anthony and Paul could have this together. It's such a simple story. It comes through legend and whatnot, but certainly it could be true. It's how that reality functions. It's not based on the outward elements of existence or need and letting someone know our need. It's all within the divine order. God provides, Divine Mother provides. So that's the beauty of it, and that's the liberating aspect of it, to live that way. To live that way, God first. That's all there is. And the life that we are living, it's to serve that reality of expanded consciousness and light and bliss.
Well, I too would like to welcome you all. If you're new to Ananda, please make yourself at home and ask questions, and we welcome you. I wanted to talk a little bit about how we do living for God first, because the fact is that if you look at Yogananda's disciples, he didn't all have them leave their duties in the world and go and live in an ashram. Rajasi, Janakananda, was his most advanced disciple, and for many, many years, Yogananda got Mount Washington in 1925. He kept Rajasi in his job for decades. He was the head CEO of these corporations, and he was the head of this insurance exchange and all these things. But that was a dharma, that was a work that was helpful to the world. And it showed to people, an example for people like us. We have day jobs, we can seek God first, but we got to bring God to the office. We have to bring him to our situation. You can't just leave your teenage children with a neighbor and go off to the Himalayas. So if you were thinking of that, just X that out. You've got to be a channel for the divine to the people around you. You're in the right job. You live in the right apartment. You got the right husband, wife, whatever. But we have to bring the consciousness of the divine to our situation and seek God in it. This was Yogananda's sort of breakaway mission. Well, I guess it really technically starts with Lahiri. Lahiri was married and had children. And he was an avatar. And he was brought Kriya back from the Himalayas, from Babaji gave him initiation. It's in the Autobiography of a Yogi. And then he went back and he worked for the railway as an accountant for 26 years. I mean, what? But that was the mission, because God wanted us in the modern world to realize that the search for God is not for far away or yesterday or tomorrow. It's for here and now. And this is our situation. And these were the teachings that Yogananda brought to the West. And Yogananda had a car, and he had clothes, and he had mortgages to pay and bank accounts. And I'm sure that Nirmala and Dharmadas and Maria and I can tell you lots of stories about, you can be a total renunciate, but you also have to pay the insurance premiums, and you have to, workman's comp is important, and all these details. Why? Because we do not separate ourselves from the divine. One of Swami's most important chants was the life mantra. God, who is infinite, is life. God, who is in all life, is joy. Life is a mission from on high. Life is the quest for inner joy. That's encapsulated the mission of Ananda, is that God is omnipresent. Therefore, wherever you are, God is there. Okay? Pay attention and be aware that that person, that your customer, is God. Your grouchy customers are God. They're even tougher to deal with to see God, but they're giving you some serious lip, and you've got to be God, God, God. You've got to give them love. You've got to understand, what is the source of their pain? Why are they suffering in this way? Why are they lashing out at me? And you've got to be, as Yogananda was, an emissary of God to your children. You have to raise your children with God. And that's a subtle thing, because your children may not want to hear about Autobiography of a Yogi, but they may be able to digest lessons of love, lessons of light. Your parents, whatever the situation. And this was Master's mission. When Master Paramahansa Yogananda gave a definition for self-realization, he said self-realization is the knowing in body, mind, and soul that you are now in possession of the kingdom of God. You don't need to achieve this. You need to improve your knowing that this is a situation. And that's why meditation is such a vital key. But we need to have a self-image of ourselves. Each of us, this is an individual self-image. We need to have an image of ourselves as a being of light, involved in the play of Maya, and trying to play out expressions of divinity in our daily work. And it doesn't matter what you're doing. Your mission is the quest to realize that you are a part of God, that you're a being of light, that your brothers and sisters, every single one of them, are beings of light. Your ex, being of light. True. And you have to come to that place where you are an instrument. And you know what happens? It's a wonderful thing. It says this in the Upanishads, but it says, one need take a single step on this path, and you will see it all around you. I'm not talking about the path of Ananda. I'm talking about the path of the search for God. But you take a step in that direction, and you realize that everyone is an expression of God. They have dimmed it, they have not realized it, or they have. But everyone is an expression of God, and divine love is what's powering this universe. That's why businessmen seek to make money. That's why politicians seek to have power. That's why doctors seek fame or great operations or to be the head of a new clinic or something. Everyone is in some way seeking God. Yogananda said everyone's on the spiritual path. Our job is to be aware of it within by meditation. In silent meditation, in stillness. What's the first mantra of Kriya Yoga? Hong Sa. I am spirit. That realization then projects, and you start to realize that everyone is seeking that. They're looking in different ways. It's true. Some people think if they are elected or if they take over this company or if they, whatever it is, be a movie star, whatever, that they'll have what? Happiness, joy. And that's a little part of the realization, Hong Sa, you are spirit. So meditate and make meditation regular. There's a plot against you. It's called Maya. And it's constantly trying to switch it around because I really should meditate. Yogananda says it's good to meditate. And so does the Buddha and Jesus and Moses. And everybody agrees on this. So I really should meditate. But you know, I have this teenager, and I have this job, and I have this. And there's all these little things. And that's why Yogananda's foremost disciples were Sister Gyanamata, Rajarsi Janakananda, who he kept in his job as a CEO, who he kept in the business world, but he would meditate in the morning, and then he would work and serve. And he would try, in his work, to see the light that's being spread by the work that he was doing. That's what we have to do. You have to have an image of what you do for a living is helping something, someone, whatever it is. And don't think you have to have a job as a minister or as a whatever it is. But as a businessman, as a realtor, as a mechanic, as a doctor, nurse, salesman, attendant at the Pizza Hut, you're giving prasad. You're giving blessing food. Bless that food. If you're a cook, I was talking to someone, their job lately has been cutting lettuce all day, every day. And I said, you got to get a mantra. You got to have something that reminds you that this is green life energy and you're giving it. And you should be blessing it. You've got to be blessing it. This is one of the requirements for working at Ananda is you've got to be thinking about how can you put energy and service into it. And that's in every aspect. But we have to do that in our jobs. We work wherever we work. We work at Kaiser. We work at Jiffy Lube. I don't know where you work. But it's the process of understanding the kingdom of God is within you. You're a player in the kingdom of God. Then you go home at night, and if you've been thinking of God, one of my jobs used to be, I used to drive a bulldozer all day. From morning till night, I drove a bulldozer. Sometimes I would go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, all day, from morning till night. But I would chant while I was working. And I found that my meditation in the evening was much better if I chanted all day than if I thought about things all day. Because I have to think about oil pressure and, you have to think about certain things, but not too much. But if you think about God, if you chant while you're working, or if you concentrate on your customers and your clients and greet them. When we used to have the East West bookstore, we used to have a training for our staff was, okay, God is in every customer that walks through the door. See them. Serve them. What if Babaji walked in the form of this person? How could I serve them? How could I make their life? Babaji, would you like some water? What can we do for you? Do you have the books you need? What are you looking for? Oh, we don't have what you want, but we know where you can get it. Service, joy, and feeling that consciousness. And what happens is the world flips. And the world looks to you like it looked to Master. Beings of light. Everyone is a being of light. And you could see this with Swami Kriyananda, is that he looked at everyone. I remember when he bought his first computer. Swami it was on a Radio Shack. It was a Radio Shack down on, I think it was on Fulton. We went in there, and this young man was going to, Swami Kriyananda wanted what was called a laptop computer. They'd just been invented, and he was going to fly to Assisi. And Swami realized, I'm going to be on a 27-hour flight to Assisi. If I had this computer, I could serve Master. I could write. So he wanted a laptop computer. Well, the young man there was clueless with a major C. He didn't get that this old guy with like 6 attendants around him might be important and was going to fork, I think there were a couple thousand in those days. He was going to just put down $2,000 and buy this computer if, my young compadre would cooperate a little. Anyway, he had no energy, so Swamiji took it on as helping him how to be a good salesman. He said, do you have the computer? He said, well, no, I don't have it. He said, do you know where it is? He said, well, I think at the store downtown they might have it. Swamiji said, what if you phone the store downtown? No, it was great. And he wasn't being cynical or sarcastic. He was being helpful. And the guy was going, yeah. Just little light went on, very little. But it was so sweet. So finally, at the end of the thing, Swamiji set up the sale, and he said, now this young man, and I was young in those days, and he said, this man will come tomorrow to this store, and he'll pick up the... And the guy's okay. And sure enough, we did it. We completed the sale. The guy got the commission or whatever. But it was, and I always wonder, years later, did he think, who was that guy? It was Swami Kriyananda. And those were, Jyotish and Devi, and this was a whole bevy of his, attendants. But I could see that Swamiji was trying to help him because he was looking at this person not as a young, clueless salesman, but as a young person who was just learning. You started in any trade, you don't know what you're doing. And he was teaching them service. Help the customer. Find out what they want. Get what they want. Bring it to them. Make it easy for them. Why? Because it's God serving God. That's the reality. We get there. And we have to make our lives more God-centered in every way. People like Nirmala and Dharmadas and Jayanti and those of us who have been here a long, long time, we're still trying to improve our attunement. How can I see God more deeply, more perfectly? How can I chant more? What's another way to look at this? What's another way to pray? What's another way to see God is everywhere? God who is infinite is life. Then every form of life. And we've been having rain. Thank God. I want you to remember what we were saying during the drought. Please, God, would you send us rain? Then the response is, thank you, God, for sending rain. Think about it. Think about the blessings you have. Think about the situation that you're in. Okay, the world is not doing so well right now. That's true. But the world wasn't doing very good between 1893 and 1952 when Yogananda lived. It was not any better than it is now. But what did Master think about? God, God, God. Did he pray for the suffering? Did he pray for the victims of the Holocaust? Did he pray for world peace? Yes, he did. But when it didn't happen in that time, he kept his eye on God. And he kept his consciousness on God. And with Rajasi, he sat on the beach at Encinitas during World War II, and he prayed. He prayed that light and harmony and world brotherhood dominate. And we pray for that now. We pray that all of this suffering and sorrow, and I'm not even going to name the number of wars because they're all over the world, but the reality of it is that God is giving serious lessons to his children. Let us be a part of the solution. Let us be a part of the love. Let us look for that light that is everywhere, that is in our hearts and everywhere. And Babaji is still going around in the Himalayas, blessing and sending Kriya. And he's guiding you. And he will talk to you, and he will appear to you if you want him to, and he will be with you at work tomorrow and every single day if you hold on to that consciousness, because he's omnipresent. And as Rajasi and Master felt it, as Swami Kriyananda felt it, through his entire life. When Ananda started, it was hopeless. There wasn't any way that they could get this land and this worldwide work and a center in Sacramento and a beautiful church and communities in India and Europe and Russia and Africa and all these places. The whole world would get a message of love. Impossible. Because it was 80 acres of land and there's no electricity and there's not very much money. It happens through the will of God. I think that's why Swami thought that the chapter on the two penniless boys in Brindaban in the autobiography of Yogi, I think that's why he was thrilled by it, because it echoed his life and the miracle that Master did through him and with him and with every one of you. It's such a joy to come to a center in Sacramento and to meet truth seekers, people who, despite what the world is doing, are intent that seeking God first is going to work. It is going to work. It's going to work. But you are wise enough to make that decision. Stick with it and push on it and make it more and more the center of your life, and you will find everything else comes to you. I won't go into it, but the fact that we're in this building is a miracle that Master just gave it to us. At one point, Swami Kriyananda, years before we had it, said, "Oh, I wanted to get you a mandir, but Master's done that already." Okay. The fundraising committee didn't know what to make of that. But it all happened. It all happened through God's grace, through Master's grace. You look at your life. Now, I can look at my life. I'm over 60 years old. I've been doing this since I was born. And God's taken care of everything. And have the faith to try it, and I guarantee you, God will give you much more than you ever expected. We never expected that we would have so much, and that we would have all of you, and many more to come, because people are looking for answers. The good side of the tumult and the chaos in our world today is that people will turn to God and say, what is going on here? Look at this world. This is disgraceful. This is disgusting. Where's their pure, loving love? In God. God bless you all. Thank you for being here.